Hello, all you cosmic travelers and wanderers. This is Darlene Vandergrift and K. Melissa Waterman, inviting you to join us today in our episode of Expansion from Within, Exploring Multidimensionality.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again. Here we are. It's episode number 56, Living Your Life to the Fullest. Today, we're going to talk about, are we living our life to the fullest? How do we live our life to the fullest if we aren't? So, do you have anything you want to say about that?
I think living our life to the fullest as a human is, are you living in joy? Right? Are you happy? Do you have joy in your life? If you do, no matter what you're doing or how well you know yourself or you don't, in some way, you're living your life to the fullest, because that is what we were designed to be, is loving, expansive, joyful people.
That's great. I mean, I wish I'd thought of that. So I don't think I'm living my life to the fullest. I've got a little joy here and there, but I would like some more. Living my life to the fullest. I think if you're living your life to the fullest, you're living the life you came here for, right? It's connected to what we talked about last 2 weeks ago about who we are and are we doing what we've come here to do, right? So living my life to the fullest is knowing that and also being in some peace, some joy, some contentment around it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a worldwide or bigger expanse than taking care of your family and having 2 children that you love dearly, and they are great kids because you raised them really well. You know, that could have been your mission, because you may not know, or your purpose, because you may not know what that relationship was 3 lifetimes ago, right? That maybe you weren't there for them. Maybe you died early. Maybe you weren't even a parent. Maybe you were one of their children. You know, whatever that is, being joyful in that purpose of being everything that you can be in what you would interpret to be your truth.
Do we have any advice if you know you're unsatisfied with living your life, you know, that you don't feel like you're living it or the way you want it to? How can we fix it? How can we shift it?
First, you have to identify it. And there's all compartments of our life. So if we lump them all together and we have 5 areas of our life that we're not happy with, that we have no joy in, you're going to get depressed, right? Because you're putting them all together. So pull them apart. If you have a family, how are you doing in the family? If you have a career, are you in the career that you want to be, or does that need to change? You know, friendships, you know, creativity, you know, all these areas of our lives that hopefully everybody has, or at least some portion of them. Pick one. And I would, if that is a bigger part of your life, that you're just miserable right now, pick one that is the easiest to take a look at. What's the closest to you to take a look at? If you're in a horrible marriage or whatever, and it's abusive or whatever, maybe that's not the thing to pick, you know, because it means either getting out of it or addressing it with he or she, right? So it's that place of, where do I have movement now? What can I create that's incrementally possible now in what part of my life? So that you're building that track record of, well, I can manifest that. I can change that. I can bring a piece of joy into my life in that area. And it just builds the confidence level.
Right. So it's like getting the intention. Wait, let me go back. First, figuring out what you're unsatisfied with.
Right.
Then sending an intention and saying, okay, this is where I'm going. And then taking whatever the steps are, however small, to keep moving in that direction of that intention.
Right.
Yeah.
And some people may need that support around them, even one friend that they can say, this is what my intention is. Again, it's not keeping it secret within yourself anymore, right? It's like, I want to change this one thing in my life, and I want to tell you what I want to change. Can you support me with that? Some people need that because they don't have the momentum, they don't have the fire yet.
What do you think restricts us?
Our belief systems in ourselves and our blaming other people or other circumstances, that are preventing us from having what we want.
Shame plays a part, I think, in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Shame can get in the way of moving forward, of, when we get in a shame spiral, we don't do anything different.
Right.
We get stuck. Often people get stuck, it would seem to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you say again what you said? What are the ways that we restrict ourselves?
It's in our beliefs about
Our
ourselves
beliefs.
and our blaming others for where we are or who we are. My parents did this to me. I can't change. I had
Right,
a horrible childhood. It's like, okay. And there's ways
right,
it's not changing the childhood. There's ways to deal with the childhood. There's ways to perceive it differently, to forgive yourself as much as maybe forgive whatever happened to you. It's mostly about forgiving you.
right. And so it's holding resentments, blame, shame. So I'm just thinking out loud here, but it's kind of like the need to identify what you're doing, recognizing that you're blaming, recognizing that you're resentful.
Mhm.
They have that great saying in AA, resentment is like drinking the poison and waiting for the other person to die.
Right.
It's a lovely little saying. It's really quite poignant to be able to identify when you're having that kind of resentment. Most of the time when I have a resentment, it's because I chose something that I wish I hadn't chosen,
Yes.
right? Like
Mhm.
I've said yes when it was really no, and then I'm resentful, but it's really me. I'm the one who made the choice. And so I think it takes introspection
Yeah.
to be able to say, okay, am I living the life I want? Is this the life that I'm meaning to create? And oh, wait, there's some areas that are not going so well. How do I put one foot in front of the other? I think we have to keep being able to say, I'm willing to look at myself and face the fear that maybe I'm doing something incorrectly or that could use improvement. And I'm strong enough to stay out of the shame as I look at that, because I think that catches people
Mhm.
right away.
Mhm.
They start to look at what went wrong and they're immediately in a shame spiral, which creates more of the bad behavior. Then
Right.
you need to drink some more or, go shopping some more or go have more sex or whatever your addiction of the day is, so that you don't have to face the shame. So you don't ever end up facing yourself because you're busy imbibing.
Right. Or the guilt that, we tend to carry around with us as a big weight on us. But that self-reflection is really important because if you don't have that, if you don't have the need, the desire, the curiosity about
Mhm,
looking within of why everything around me may look like a crap show, like,
mhm,
so how did it get that way? What is my part in it? It's that
right,
place of always goes back to how did it come to here without the shame and the guilt and the blame of yourself because you can't move through that. It's like sludge. You can't move through that. But it's saying, okay, so yes, this is who I am and this is who I have been, have been. What do I
mhm,
want now? What incrementally can change one step at a time that takes you into the more purposeful you?
right. And knowing, I think that we are resilient beings. We're regular energizer bunnies, and we have neuroplasticity so that we can always learn a new trick. It may take some time. The new
Mhm.
trick may not just catch on in 5 seconds, but if we are diligent, if we can
Mhm.
stay out of that shame that leads to all that addictive behavior that keeps us kind of numb, then we can be unstoppable. I think this
Yes.
is, like we talked about last time, like this is one of those ways that we can literally create the life we want to be living. There's something about bringing forward what we want in a life that the evolves mentioned in our last cosmic traveler session, and I want to talk about that a little bit more. How do we bring forth what we want? Is it just through manifestation? Is it happen naturally?
Well, I think, I just had a client that texted me and couldn't believe what had just happened in his life. Um, without going into detail, there was something, he had a breakup, which is a huge breakup for him. He had, in his business sense, heard a song that was not recorded yet. And so it was all about this breakup and how to find yourself and put yourself first and whatever. And this person that broke up with him contacted him 2 days later after a year and a half of no of radio silence and apologized.
Wow.
And then he was invited by this artist to go to this concert on his birthday. So it was that did the song, right? So it was all this synchronicity that came in. Did he create that? Not knowingly, but what happened is he said yes to things and he let go of things and he came to terms with things and he stopped blaming himself for the breakup. And that all happened for this to happen.
Right. He
So
put
it's like,
himself in alignment,
yes,
right? So that all those synchronicities could walk right in front of him and he
yep,
could see them. If he had his head down and was in shame, he'd have missed half of them.
right. Or he wouldn't have
Right.
even been saying yes to any of those things,
Right. Right.
And that's part of what do we bring to us? We say yes. We have to be discerning, but we say yes to, well, that sounds like an opportunity,
Right.
or I like to meet that person, or you battle with the fact that I don't really want to go out tonight, but these friends asked me to go out. And do you really kind of move into, well, I may not want to go out, but where does that come from? Does it
Right.
come from, I don't feel good about myself, I don't look good, my hair isn't washed, like where does that come from? And do you really need to step into the aliveness of where you're being invited to go? Because maybe something will happen there.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because who knows what will happen there? I mean, something will
Right.
happen there. I
Something
mean,
will happen there. That's right.
yeah,
And it's either going to
absolutely.
be a lesson or a growth or both
Right.
or a good time.
Right. For a good time. Oh, it could be a great time.
Mhm.
Right. So, do you feel like you're living a life worth living?
I grew up asking myself, not being afraid of death, but being afraid of being alive,
Mhm.
because it's much scarier for me to be alive than it is to fall into that death place.
I agree.
And it's always been a struggle to do that because aliveness to me is visibility, and visibility prior to knowing that between writing the books and doing these podcasts and teaching and all of that, it's been terrorizing for me to be, visible at all. It wasn't what I was supposed to be, visible, because then the doctors were going to take me off from my mother. They were going to abort me if I was visible. So it comes from that real, genuine core place of you don't speak out, you don't become visible, you don't say anything because somebody's going to kill you. So am I living that more so? Because what I can see is, and this just feels like it's a goal setting for me so that when these series of books come out and they portray everything about the evolves who were the Council of 28, and they depict the world changes that we're in, and they talk about ancient history and they talk about the beings and how they've come through all their species, how they've come together and why they're here. That feels like it's a mission for me. Like that felt like, yes. So I feel like that's an end place. And then I don't know what it is.
Right.
That could happen in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. But I know that that is a goal for me and that feels like it's an ending in some way, which might be a new beginning. I don't know.
Right. I'm thinking about for myself whether my life is worth living. Am I living a life worth living? That's the question, really. And it's very interesting to me because what it takes for me to know that I'm living a life worth living has to do with a vantage point. Because I could wake up one day and be like, oh no, this is just too hard. This is just how many weird things can go wrong in a row. And I just feel victimized or something like that. And then it just feels like drudgery to keep pulling myself through the molasses of the third dimension.
Right.
And then another day, this day actually, I could wake up and go, oh, I have all this stuff I'm grateful for. I'm so happy that I have all the choices that I have, just the choices alone that I have before me in a given day, what music I'm going to listen to, or what podcast, or what TV show, or what's going to edify me. Oh, what pictures am I hanging on the walls of this relatively new apartment that bring me joy? Like
Mhm.
it's about my vantage point. Am I under it? Am I under some victimy mindset where nothing's going my way? Or am I actually in the moment where I can see, oh, I have been blessed beyond blessed. I have enough food in the refrigerator. I have enough books to read. I have enough of everything. I have enough friends. I have more than enough of everything.
Mhm.
So that makes my life worth living, right? Because I can feel it as I'm talking about it. There's joy in it,
Mhm.
which, again, we talked about that before. Like that's the piece. If we're having a good life, we know that it's joyful. It has some yummy joy leading to contentment, right?
Yeah,
It's
and it's
it's
not
good.
every day, you know,
Right.
because we're
Right.
we're at the advantage of stars and planets and what's happening around us and the environment and all of that. So when you get a day that feels
Yep.
like, oh my God, like I can't believe that all this happened today, and
Right.
whatever it is, just push the pause button and know
Huh?
it was just today, or it was just the last 4 hours, or whatever that is, so that you don't self-create that by the next day. Oh God, I hope the day isn't like yesterday, because you'll bring it some form of it towards you.
Right. 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 Because we're unstoppable.
'Cause we are unstoppable in creating whatever it is that we create, whether it's positive or negative, right?
That's right. I think that's really true. I think
Mhm.
we have a hard time. It sounds like we're blaming if we're saying we created the negative, but we do create negative things with our thinking and our feeling. There's no doubt about it. But we don't
Attitude
have to
and
stay
perception,
stuck in it.
right?
Say it again.
Attitude and perception.
Right. Well, and I think that's what I'm talking about, attitude and perception. And so if I can get back in the moment and go, wait, what am I grateful for? It's like almost always, yeah, I'm living a life worth living.
Mhm.
And if I'm not, I'm restricting myself with that shame, the guilt, the resentment. It's a restriction that
Mhm.
I have the power to shift. I have the
That's a
power to
good,
say,
that's a good thing. I have the power to shift it. I have the power to choose. I have the power to put this aside and move on. I don't think a lot of people address, identify, own their power. They
right,
feel victimized a lot, especially if they've had a life that is very difficult.
right,
What power
right.
do I have, you know?
Well, and it's sort of tricky because sometimes when people are in victimhood, when they're coming from that victim stance, they really feel victimized, like other people have done stuff to them,
Yes.
the universe is out to get them because the car broke down. Like it's really their vantage point. It's their attitude. And it doesn't, the car did not break down because the universe is mad at anybody. That's not why it happened. That's not the reason.
I think it's a really hard pattern to break, right? When in victimhood or anything else where everything happens to you as opposed to you taking any accountability for any part of it.
Right. Yeah, I think taking accountability is part of the 7 seeds somehow. It's like really,
Well, it's
personal
being
accountability.
accountable. Yeah, personal accountability, I think, is part of that integrity piece.
Right. That's right. Thank you for putting it in one of the 7 slots.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have any other thing you want to say today?
That we're all capable. We're all capable of living a life worth living, having some
Yes.
form of joy in it, being accountable for who we are and who we are becoming. And all of that is joyful. There's empowerment and joy in owning who you are, whether it's something monumental or something that isn't.
That's so true. That's great. Yeah. Are you ready for the announcements?
I am.
All right. Well, this episode is connected to the teachings presented in the July live Cosmic Travelers events. The materials given during the meditation at that event will assist you in exploring this topic. You can order a recording of this event, the July event, at soulunion.com. Please visit Darlene at soulunion.com and me at livingwellbeing.net. But don't forget that we have the Cosmic Travelers session, which is on the 3rd Sunday of each month. Everyone participates in a guided interactive meditation directly with the evolves. It's pretty cool. You can contact Darlene through soulunion.com for payment instructions and for the link to attend. Cosmic Travelers has a Facebook page. It's under groups. It's pretty fun. Darlene asks questions every week, like share your favorite picture. She comes up with some fun things to post about. I highly recommend that as well. Please submit your questions for this podcast to soulunion.com. You can also just give us, like your ideas about this podcast. What else would you like us to talk about? Tell us whether we say too much, do whatever you want, but give us some comments. We could use some advice here. We also have YouTube channels. You can find both Darlene and I on YouTube. And I think that's all.
So you know more than you know, and we'll catch you on the flip side.